Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This is going to be my 2019 Avatar and Korra story and merchandise preview video. This is going to be the last video as part of my, I suppose, end of 2018 content. You've already seen my top 5 story moments from the year for Avatar and Korra. You've seen my 2018 year in review. Now it's time to look ahead to what's happening next year. So, let's immediately jump into the fact that one of the big things that's probably going to be part of this video, and it's also going to be a feature of 2019, is that dates will change on this stuff. We have dates for certain things right now. They've been changed already. They will change again. So dates are accurate as of the making of this video, but probably will change again. So we're going to start off with the 2019 story content. This is obviously my focus, and I think a lot of people's focus when it comes to Avatar over the course of the year. The new story content to expand out the universe, that's always a key feature of the year. More so than the merchandise, which there's usually never too much merchandise, so the story content usually takes focus. So what are we getting next year? So the confirmed books where we've seen covers and stuff like that, we have a certain date, are these 4 books here. At least in terms of Dark Horse Comics. So we have Avatar: The Last Airbender, Team Avatar Tales, which is listed still on the Dark Horse website as March 6, 2019. It's since been confirmed that this book will be getting a date change. It won't be to 2020 as was kind of rumored or went up on a couple of websites, but Dark Horse are still working out when exactly to schedule it. Now, the impression I get is that it will change from March 6th, probably to a later date, but it will be still, I think, relatively close to March 6th. I don't think there's any reason for this book to suffer another delay, given that it's already suffered like about a 6-7 month delay over the course of it being announced. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see this kind of maybe jump into like maybe March 19th or something like that, or the week after that, kind of end of March, maybe early April, but I think that's the absolute latest they could do it. The other book we have is Imbalance Part 2. We obviously started Imbalance a couple of weeks back, and the second part is now scheduled after a delay to May 7th, 2019. That seems fairly locked in right now, just because it is a Tuesday date, and that seems to be the way they're going about this. The comic book store date for this, I think, is going to be May 8th at this point, but that seems pretty set in stone. The other book we have a date for is Legend of Korra: Runes of the Empire Part 1, the next Korra comic, with new artist Michelle Wong on board, which is really good. We've seen preview pages for this book already, and they look amazing. It's going to be a Kuvira story, and immediately that just looks, to me, incredible. It's currently scheduled for May 21st, 2019, so we'll actually be getting an Avatar and a Korra book very, very close together. First time that's happened. That's going to be actually pretty big. For anyone wondering, actually just going quickly back to Team Avatar Tales, what that book is going to be, it's going to be an anthology of stories. It's going to collect the free comic book day books for Avatar: The Last Airbender, which previously were only available if you went to that specific free comic book day. So it'll have Shells, it'll have Sisters, it'll have Rebound, and as well as a bunch of other stories from a variety of different creators. So you'll see a lot of different art styles, a lot of different writers over the course of this book, but the length of the book is the same length as a standard book. Like in Balance Part 1, Team Avatar Tales is going to be the same page count as that. So we're going to be getting about 40-ish pages of new content, so look forward to that. The only other book we have that has like a cover and a date is Legend of Korra Turf Wars Library Edition. This is the hardcover collection for Turf Wars, so this will contain all 3 parts of Turf Wars. I think we'll get the standard annotations throughout the book, as well as some concept art, maybe an interview at the back as well. This is going to be a really deluxe, nice hardcover book, and that is due out March 13th, 2019. So realistically, that may be the first, Dark Horse book out in the year, because I assume Team Avatar Tales will probably get pushed to a date after the 13th. But saying that, this book could also get a delay, but I don't know about that for sure. But again, like I said, dates will probably change, but just keep an eye on them. Before we go into, I suppose, other books that are expected, let's cover the books that are confirmed, that have a cover and a date. So next up, moving away from Dark Horse and into the new thing we're going to be getting in 2019, the first ever Avatar novel. So we're getting the Kyoshi novel #1 of 2, and the first book is called The Rise of Kyoshi, and it's going to be out July 16th, 2019. And it obviously is written by F.C. Yi, and this is going to be really cool. It's an over 300-page novel about Kyoshi, her early life, which we don't really know a lot about, so that is going to be very, very interesting. A huge piece of content coming out in the middle of the year. That should be very, very, very exciting to get to when we get to it. So immediately you can see we have a lot more story content this year, because we have so many books. Like, as you can see there, we've already had, we're going to get at least three pieces of story content this year from Dark Horse, plus this novel. And then moving on, we're also getting this book, Legend of Korra and Avatar's Chronicle from Insight Editions. This book is going to be out August 6th, 2019. If you remember the Avatar Legacy book, which was the one with all the kind of pull-out little parts, it was a book that Aang wrote for Tenzin when Tenzin was younger. It didn't go down massively well, but it's an interesting enough book. We're getting a similar style of book for Korra this time, and this is Korra writing basically a chronicle or a journal about her time as the Avatar. So it's going to cover a lot of her journey, and we could get a few interesting little pieces of information, and that book is out August 6, 2019. I think it was previously scheduled for sometime in May, but it's since been pushed back. Similarly, the other Inside Editions book that was announced in the last couple of months, Legacy of the Fire Nation, the one that had the description that was all about Iroh, that book has now been pushed back into February 2020, so that's why we don't have a cover or any images for that. It's still a good bit off. Realistically, it won't be out in 2019. So, these books, they never feature too many new pieces of content, but I suspect we'll have to get at least something, because this is going to be the first time we get a kind of Korra information book, and because of that, there likely will be some new information over the course of the book. Plus all the pullouts and stuff like that. It's going to be a pretty well-made book, so it should be interesting enough, even if it's not as heavy on content as that other stuff. So let's move into speculation, the stuff that hasn't been yet confirmed, but is very, very, very likely to happen. So starting off with the comics, Imbalance Part 3 most likely will be out in 2019. I'd be shocked if it wasn't. My guess would be that it will be out in October or November of 2019. Because if Part 2 is scheduled for May, that means obviously between December this year and May, that's 5 months between Part 1 and Part 2. Assuming the schedule remains the same, 5 months between Part 2 and Part 3 would lead us into November, potentially October, if they really kind of get ahead of schedule, potentially. So I think we should see it 2019. I'd be shocked if we don't. That would mean there's probably been some sort of delay. Also, we should expect Runes of the Empire Part 2 to be out around the same time, probably. Given that Imbalance Part 2 and Runes Part 1 are both out in May, we should realistically expect the same sort of thing towards the end of the year with the Part 2 for Runes. So that should make it a very, very exciting year. We also should get the Imbalance hardcover announced. I really doubt it will be released in 2019, but it should be announced for release in early or mid 2020. So that'll be fun. We'll probably get the cover towards the end of the year, and that'll be fun to see, because those covers for the hardcovers are always very nice. Other than that, we should also get the announcement for the next Avatar comic that's coming after Imbalance. I'm assuming the Faith Aaron Hicks and Peter Wortman team will be sticking together, at least for a couple of books, and I suspect they probably will try their best to get the announcement about this out as soon as possible, towards the end of Imbalance's run. Will we hear about it for sure next year? I'm not sure if it's going to be ending around October, November, but I'd like to think they would, to keep the nice run of comics that we have going right now going. Because obviously they were very quick on getting Ruins going, so I hope that they're quick on getting the next Avatar comic announced also. So, and then also we may hear some details about the second Kyoshi novel towards the end of the year. I'm not entirely sure on that. I don't really know what the schedule is for the second book, but it being maybe, you know, a year after the first book would sort of make sense, but it is a very long book, so it could be like a year and a half. But I think we might get the title and the cover, at least. So that's a lot of story content. If you really add all that up, that is, 5 mainline books: Team Avatar Tales, Imbalance Part 2 and 3, Ruins of the Empire Part 1 and 2, 5 comics that feature new story content, plus the Kyoshi novel, which is a completely new thing that should be packed with information, plus the Avatar's Chronicle book. We've never had this much new content, and you can definitely say this is going to be the most new story content we've had since Korra came to an end in 2014. We've never had this many comics. Of course, delays might push some of those books out, but I'd be very confident in saying we should be getting at least 4 mainline books if potentially one gets pushed out. So this is going to be a big year, I think, for story content in Avatar, and the hope obviously will be that with announcements they make over the year, they'll keep that hype and pushing out of content going into 2020 as well. So let's move into merchandise now. The merchandise, the other stuff that's not necessarily story content. So this is other types of books, figures, statues, that sort of stuff that will also be coming out in 2019. So first up, from Inside Editions as well, the same people who are going to be making the Avatar's Chronicle book, we have these journals and notebooks for Avatar and Korra. These were announced last year, and we've since had like covers and stuff like that revealed. As of now, all 3 of these things have the same release date. All 3 of them are expected to be out August 6, 2019. What we have up first is the purple Avatar: The Last Airbender hardcover ruled journal. Then we have the blue Legend of Korra hardcover ruled journal. And then the second thing is a set of 2. So if you buy this thing, you get both the Korra and the Aang one here, notebooks. So these aren't hardcover, and they're just notebooks, but you do get 2 of them. I believe the 2 notebooks are actually cheaper than individually either of the hardcovers. So, you know, it's just like stationery, basically. It's just paper. I think there's a couple of pages at the start that like have images of the characters on them, but don't expect anything particularly new with these. As you can see, they all use relatively stock pieces of Avatar imagery, so it's nothing fancy. But if you need a notebook, you know, why not pick up one of these? Just because like this is the sort of stuff that we probably should have had coming out during the run of Avatar, of Korra while it was on TV, but didn't. So it is nice to get this stuff now. Moving on, Avatar Funko Pops. I think this is going to probably end up being the big merchandise story of the year, how successful and popular the Avatar Funko Pops are going to be. So the full lineup for at least Wave 1 was announced only a couple of weeks ago, and they're scheduled for release late January, early February 2019. And of course, more than likely, more will be announced throughout the year. I'd be pretty confident of that. If this is getting a very early release in the year, I think we'll at least see a second wave towards the end of the year. And obviously there's the potential that if the Avatar ones are successful, why wouldn't they do Korra ones? Because if you look at Funko, they do a lot of properties, and ones that you would say aren't even half as popular as Korra. So I don't think there's really any sense of like, oh, they need to judge how well the Avatar ones will do to judge for Korra. I'd almost assume that like they have to be working on Korra ones. The reception for just the images of these Avatar ones has been popular. These are going to sell very, very well. The impression I get is that the Appa and the Iroh are really, really popular. Those are ones that people really want. The Appa because he actually works quite well. The Funko Pop styling doesn't take too much away from him. And Iroh because he's such a fan favorite character. It's going to be interesting to see how the exclusives work in terms of how available or unavailable they are. But in general, I get the impression that most people really like a lot of these. And then as they announce more, especially if they do like book 3 designs for like a Katara, a Sokka, Aang, Zuko, they'll be even more popular as they get through more characters and so on as the year goes on. I'll probably have a video over the next couple of weeks talking about other Funkos I think they should do as part of like a wave 2 potentially. But yeah, don't be at all surprised to see a lot more Avatar Funkos announced, because this batch looks really, really good. I'll definitely be picking up a good amount of these. I don't know quite yet if I'm going to commit to getting all of them, but you'll see videos of at least the first couple just to show what they look like. So expect some content on the Funko Pops from me on my channel. Next up, Zen Monkey Studios. No images here because they actually haven't announced anything that's like coming out, like Avatar Korra stuff that's coming out in 2019 yet. But they did on Twitter at some point during the year, I think it was September, announce that their plan is to release a new wave of pins for each of their licenses every quarter. So that means like every 3 or so months, they're planning to release a new wave of pins for all of their main licenses. And if you look also on their Twitter, they mentioned that over the Christmas period, one of their number one best-selling pin over the Christmas period was the Iroh pin that they put out. They also mentioned that the Appa pin that they have was also on that list. So Avatar is doing very well for them, so don't be surprised to see them do a lot in 2019. They also started to put out Avatar and Korra t-shirts this year. I assume we'll see more of that as the year goes on. As I mentioned just before, there has been no 2019 stuff revealed yet. Given that they just put out the Day of Black Sun stuff in December, I say we maybe expect stuff like late February, March or something like that for the next line of pins. And I suppose like they also could put out like a scattered like 1 or 2 every so often. But as I've said in other videos, what I think Zen Monkey need to do for 2019 is do more characters. Don't just focus on doing the same main characters over and over again. Put out more characters, symbols and stuff like that. So I say here, Wan, Rava, Mei, Ty Lee, Jinora, many other characters don't have pins yet. That's what they need to deliver on. Other than that, they were a highlight of like 2018 in terms of the merchandise they put out. They've been the most consistent, I suppose, place that puts out merchandise. Now they have the Funkos to sort of like back up and have other stuff to buy. So I think they should be a very solid place to look for Avatar merchandise over the year. Next up, the Mondo Korrasami statue is expected to ship in the first quarter of 2019, and it seems that the standard version of this figure seems to still be available to order. I heard when the pre-orders first went up that it sold out immediately. I think both versions, both the limited and the standard version. Looking at it again, it seems that the standard version of this figure, you can actually still order it. So, that is positive. It's a very, very, very expensive figure, but it's also one of the most high quality pieces of Avatar merchandise we've ever got. So if you're a fan of Korrasami, check out Mondo and their Korrasami statue. And it will be shipping, I suppose that means within the first 3 months of next year. So next up, new company doing Avatar merchandise. I've actually known about this for a couple of months, but I haven't had any reason to talk about it just because they've basically not really put out any information about it. I had to just do a Google search of like Golden Bell Studios Avatar to find this image. Like I just couldn't navigate through their website to find necessarily where this was just from the website. But I knew, I think that I heard some minor piece of information from New York Comic Con that they had a poster up, and it was basically this poster here. You can see Avatar The Last Airbender games and stuffed toys. So it seems like Golden Bell Studios have a license to make some Avatar stuff. And, like I say here, very little information right now. So this stuff may or may not be coming out in 2019. But given that they announced it at Comic Con last year, I assume something is going to have to come out this year. I think I've heard some people mention that at the convention they said they'd have an Appa and a Momo plush, I think. So stuffed toys, Appa and Momo, that makes sense. And then they do like tabletop games and stuff like that. So we can expect them to do other stuff like that as well. So something to keep an eye out on if you haven't heard about this yet. They have a website where you can look at the other stuff that they do. It seems like they put out kind of trading card game type stuff. I suppose it's not trading card games, more so just card games, because you don't buy packs. It's just you buy a set of cards and there's a game you can play with them. that sort of stuff seems cool. It's just something to keep an eye out on, that more and more places are getting the Avatar license to do stuff with. But yeah, that's most of the stuff that's been announced. And then I'll just wrap up here basically with some expected news, stuff that hasn't really happened yet, but is very likely to just have news come out about over the course of 2019. The main one, like I talked about already, would be that I think they have to announce the next Avatar comic at some point next year. Let us know what's coming after Imbalance, just, so we have the hype. I'd really like to hope it's finally the Azula story, because that's a big one that I think the comics have needed to tackle for a while. So hopefully the same creative team, Peter Wortman and Faith Erin Hicks, stays together, and they announce the next 3-part comic. Next, we should also get our first proper news on the live-action Avatar show for Netflix next year. I'm assuming that will be very late next year when this sort of stuff happens, because obviously when it was announced, we basically heard that it was literally just Mike and Brian on the creative team right now. Literally, pen was just being put to paper in terms of the writing of this show, the ideas. They have to get actors, sets, all this sort of stuff going before we'll properly hear information. But I think towards the end of 2019, if the show is scheduled for release in 2020, we'd have to hear something, I think, towards the end of the year. Then, like I also said, info on the second Kyoshi novel I think we will get as the year progresses. We'll also find out more about the Funko Pops in terms of other ones that they're doing. And as I said, potentially Korra ones could also get announced, which kind of doubles the amount of characters they can be doing. We'll get more Zen Monkey t-shirts and pins, and also find out what Golden Bell Studios are releasing. And of course, there's always the potential for other stuff to happen. Just all over the place, like, stuff could happen. Like, they could put out more Avatar Korra Nendoroids, like they put out the Korra one, but we haven't heard anything since. Anything could happen. And I don't have a slide for it here, but of course, the Korra soundtrack, the Avatar soundtrack, is still something we sort of look to as this piece of merchandise that seems like it's never ever going to come out. Jeremy Zuckerman keeps teasing that, like, he's working on it, and it seems like, there's a tweet where it seems like it's really likely to happen, but then there's no real announcement. The amount of stuff that's happening, the success of the Blu-ray release, I think the potential success that the Funko Pops are going to be, the amount of books coming out, they're starting novels, why not put out those soundtracks? The music, I think, above anything with both shows, is probably the most universally, like, the music in Avatar and Korra is good. People will buy that music just to get the official soundtrack and not have to work off the sort of fan-made ones that we have right now. So that is something in terms of a major hope for next year, that they finally commit to doing that. But let's quickly wrap it up here. So 2019, the most story content since Korra ended, both in terms of amount of comics as well as the first novel coming out. So like I said, we're probably going to get 5 mainline Dark Horse comics, plus the Turf Wars Library Edition, plus the Kyoshi novel, and there's the an Avatar's Chronicle book, and potentially information about what's to come. Funko Pops are going to be, I think, a really big thing in 2019. They are hugely popular, and the Avatar figures should excite people when they're finally released, and especially once we start hearing about other ones. And then just the random other pieces of news, the other little bits of merch, the notebooks and so on, Zen Monkey stuff, as well as little pieces of news, should round out what looks to be a very, very strong year for Avatar and Korra content. So that's the 2019 preview for the Avatar and Korra story and merchandise. Of course, follow my channel over the course of the year, and I'll have news updates about basically everything that happens as the year goes on. You'll hear from me when Funko Pop news happens. You'll have review content from me when all of this story content comes out. If you've followed my channel for any length of time, you know I cover basically everything that's related to Avatar and Korra. So it's not just this one video. I've talked about all of this stuff when it was announced during the year. This is just a summation of it all happening. So definitely subscribe if you haven't, and follow along with all the news into 2019. But yeah, that's been the video. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are in 2019, looking ahead to the year. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.